you're seeing a young skin, that is your skin, which is clear and looks very attractive. Whereas on the other side, you can see an aged skin. That is, here the skin is dry, wrinkles have appeared in the skin, and certain blackish discoloration can also be seen in this aged skin. So why I put this slide is, though the young skin looks very attractive, there's a glow in the skin of young people that is actually due to a fatty substance called sebum, which is secreted by the sebaceous glands. And these sebaceous glands are seen abundantly in your scalp, face, and upper part of the body. And this is responsible for many diseases also. We'll deal with some of the common diseases due to increased sebum production. So first is a very common problem called pimples or acne. We call it acne. Actually, this occurs due to because the pores in the skin become clogged with sebum. And this is mainly due to some hormonal factors, certain bacteria, along with excess of sebum production. Show you the picture of acne. In the first picture, you can see many types of lesions, that is ranging from very small lesions like whiteheads, blackheads, and then larger lesions also. Actually, we are worried about such larger lesions, which can lead on to, you can see the second picture, that is scars in the face. Mild acne by themselves are not problematic because it will heal with a hyperpigmentation that will subside within 1 or 2 months. But severe types of acne can lead on to such scarring, which can remain in your skin throughout. It is almost all your lifetime. So what are the do's and don'ts in acne? If you get acne, what all should you do? That is due to excess oil in your face. So you should wash your face regularly, that is twice or thrice daily with soap and water. That is to cleanse off the excess oil in the face. The second point is important, that is do not pick or squeeze the acne lesions, because even minor lesions, if you keep on picking the lesions, it will cause injury to the skin, and that can lead on to bacterial invasion. This can lead on to secondary infection and cause scarring. So even minor forms of acne can be severe if you handle the acne lesions with your hands. The third point is avoid oil-based creams and cosmetics. Here again, you have excess oil in your face. If you start applying creams and cosmetics which are oil-based, these can again block your pores. So you have to avoid all these oil-based creams and cosmetics. And if you apply cosmetics also, you have to remove it at bedtime, because that can cause flare-up of acne. Then about diet in acne, many people have certain misconceptions about diet in acne. Eating oily food will not cause acne. Actually, the diet we cannot generalize and say. Certain people come to us, they say when we eat nuts or when we eat chocolates, it causes flare-up of acne, sometimes eggs. So in such individuals, we ask them to avoid that particular food item. Otherwise, you cannot generalize and say. So there is no dietary factors implicated in acne. And mild acne, if you apply some topical creams itself, it will go. Severe types of acne, we have to take tablets also. That is anti-acne treatment or antibiotics. But effective treatments are there. Don't have to worry. Second condition is dandruff or seborrhea. It's again a common condition which occurs due to increased sebum production. I'll show you the picture first. Increased scaling of the scalp. Actually, this is dandruff is just increased flaking or scaling of the scalp. That is normal. Minor scaling is not at all a problem. It is a normal physiological process. But there are certain situations when you have to seek treatment. One case is when you comb your hair, excess scales start falling down. That's a problem. You can seek treatment. Then sometimes other areas of the body can be involved, like your eyelashes, eyebrows, sides of nose, behind your ears. Scales can get deposited in these areas. Okay. And sometimes it may be associated with itching or severe hair fall. In such cases, we'll advise anti-dandruff shampoos. These anti-dandruff shampoos should be used regularly. That is, initially, we have to use it twice weekly. Just 5 minutes before bath, like any other shampoo, you can mix it with water, apply in the scalp for 5 minutes, and then wash it off. And once the scaling subsides, you can taper it. That is, once a week application will be enough. But this once a week application you will have to apply for many years. That is, till your sebaceous gland activity is less. So, regular and continuous use of this anti-dandruff shampoo is very important. It does not have any side effects like hair fall, or it won't destroy your hair follicles. So, you can safely use it once a week for several years. Next condition is hyperhidrosis. So we were talking about increased secretion by the sebaceous gland. Next is increased secretion by the sweat glands. Hyperhidrosis or increased sweating has its onset usually in adolescent age group. So you just see the picture. See, increased sweating of the hands. So increased sweating can be generalized or it can be specific, localized to specific areas. Specific areas is, they are usually hands, feet, armpits, etc. So usually sweating occurs depending on the temperature, that is in hot and humid temperature, and also following increased physical activity you can get increased sweating. But in such individuals, people with hyperhidrosis, they sweat independent of these factors. And especially during times of stress, that is when they write exam, sweat will start dribbling from their fingertips. That is problematic. And in such situations, usually we rule out other medical problems which may be associated with increased sweating. For example, diabetes mellitus, then hyperthyroidism, that is increase in thyroid hormone activity. In such situations, you can get increased sweating. So after ruling out, we have treatment for increased sweating. That is, if it is localized areas, you can give some antiperspirant lotions for application. And then we have a procedure called iontophoresis, where you have to dip your hands and feet in a solution which contains this antiperspirant solution for around 20 to 30 minutes, and you can repeat the sessions often. That is found to be very effective in hyperhidrosis or increased sweating. Next common condition, this also occurs in people who sweat more, that is tinea or ringworm infection, commonly called as purukadi, valangadi. People think it is usually due to spider bites. No, it is a fungal infection. So, I'll show you the picture. This is a reddish, round, itchy, scaly lesion. Because of its round nature, it's called ringworm infection. Okay. And usually this occurs in covered areas because fungi thrive in warm, moist areas. So usually this occurs in covered parts. It is a contagious disease. It can spread to others either by skin-to-skin contact or through objects. So as it occurs in covered areas, this causes discomfort to the patient because itching in covered areas is a problem. So they won't come for consultation also because they don't want to show their covered parts. So they have a tendency to buy over-the-counter medicines. The problem with such medicines are they mostly contain steroid preparations. So if they apply the steroid preparation, their itching will be much less. The erythema seen in this picture, that is a redness seen in this picture, that will come reduce, and so the patients are very happy because their itching is less. But along with that, the fungi are also happy because they can thrive very well in steroid applied areas. And the problem when they come to us is that the fungi would have developed resistance to the normal drugs which we usually use. So what are the do's and don'ts in fungal infection if you get? That is, initially itself you have to treat. That is, any topical antifungal agents will help. And another thing you have to, that is, do not share your personal items because it can spread through objects. Then always wear loose cotton clothes because cotton clothes can absorb sweat. So fungal infections will reduce. Then avoid over-the-counter medicine. That's very important. That's why I said you should prevent resistance. Then clothes should always be dried under direct sunlight, because this direct sunlight can kill most of the germs. That is very effective. Hostelers always they dry their clothes in their rooms. Never do that. If during rainy season, you can at least iron your clothes and use. Okay. Next is Tinea versicolor, commonly called Chonanga TML. Show you the picture. It's a very common condition. It's called versicolor because you can get whitish lesions as well as blackish lesions. The problem with this is it is asymptomatic. This is again a fungal infection. It is asymptomatic compared to a ringworm infection. This is asymptomatic. The patient will not have any itching. So they won't seek treatment, and it will extend to other parts of the body, and it can spread to others also. So you have to take treatment early itself. Then next common condition is warts. Warts is Arimbara. This is again a viral infection. You get small raised rough surface growth. Show you the picture. The first picture. Very common condition, asymptomatic. So they don't take treatment. It is again contagious. It can spread to other parts of the body as well as it can spread to others. And they try to remove it on their own. So bacterial infection can occur and pain can also occur. So seek treatment in the early stage itself. The second picture I have shown is also wart, but it is different. Morphology is different. That is, it occurs in the soles. But these warts are painful lesions. When they walk, they get pain. They come with complaints saying that they are having ani in the soles. Actually, these are also mostly plantar warts. But the difference is because it is painful. And if you don't treat, numerous lesions can appear, and you can treat only with electrocautery. That is, destroying the lesions using electric current, which is a painful procedure. So before giving this electrocautery, we have to give local anesthesia to each of these lesions through injections. So that is a bit tedious procedure. So it's better to treat early itself. In the initial stages, you can just apply any lotions containing acids, which will remove these warts. Next common condition is chickenpox. Again, a viral infection caused by varicella zoster virus. It is highly contagious. Even if one member in the family gets chickenpox, it can spread to others. Spread is mainly airborne or by skin-to-skin contact. Then incubation period, that is the time interval between the entry of virus into your body and the onset of skin lesions is usually 2 to 3 weeks. And usually the patients will have fever, headache, tiredness, body ache initially for 1 or 2 days, and following that they'll get blisters. These are fluid-filled lesions. It will be distributed all over your scalp, face, trunk, extremities. So this is the initial picture. We describe it as dewdrop on rose petal appearance, as if a dewdrop has fallen on a rose petal. This will last for around 4 or 5 days, and then it will subside, and then new crops of lesions will appear. So these also, as mentioned earlier in acne, if it is mild chickenpox, it will just subside by itself. It will leave just small black spots. But if it is severe, it can cause scarring, which is difficult to treat. So what all should you do if you get chickenpox? One thing is rest. Any viral infection, it is better to take a rest. Second thing is isolate yourselves from others, especially if there are elderly members in your family. They'll get all the complications of chickenpox. Complications are more in elderly, as you see now in COVID time. Mortality, death rate and complications are always more in elderly individuals. So you have to isolate yourselves from other family members. Then regarding bath, most of the people have the impression that if you have chickenpox, you should avoid taking bath. Actually, daily bath is advisable. Initial 2 or 3 days, maybe you will have some fever and you may be feeling sick. But after that, you should take daily bath with soap and water. That will remove all the surface germs and it will prevent secondary infection and prevent scarring. That is the most important thing. And treatment is with antiviral drugs. Now, effective antiviral drugs are available like acyclovir. If at the onset of skin lesions itself you take acyclovir, the healing time will be much reduced. That is, usually chickenpox takes around 2 to 3 weeks to heal. But if you are taking any antiviral drug, the healing time will be around 1 week. It will subside within 1 week. And the infectivity also will be less. That is, the ability to spread the infections will be less to others. And there will be only minimal scarring, minimal number of lesions. Those are the advantages. Previously, if you get chickenpox, they'll come to work or go to college only after 2 or 3 weeks. But nowadays, after this acyclovir is given, then now they come after 1 week. There will be no telltale evidence of chickenpox, no pigmentation, no scarring. Only a few lesions they'll get. So we have effective treatment for chickenpox also now. And vaccines are also available to prevent chickenpox, but it does not provide lifelong immunity. Natural infection will provide lifelong immunity, but vaccines will give immunity only for a few years. Next condition is herpes zoster. It is not very common in your age group. I put this slide because chickenpox is common in your age group. And once you get this infection, the virus will remain latent in your body after recovery. So if it is caused by varicella virus, that will remain in your body. It won't cause any disturbance to you. But after several years, maybe in old age, this virus will get reactivated and cause herpes zoster. That is, there will be history of chickenpox. Reactivation of virus occurs very late. The difference between chickenpox and herpes zoster is here you get localized blisters. As in chickenpox, it won't occur all over your body. It will be localized along a dermatome, and you will get severe pain associated with these lesions. That is the difference. Treatment and all are the same. Next common infection is pediculosis. Pediculosis means lice infestation. People don't consider this as a disease. They walk around with this. The problem is they can spread these lice to others. So they come to us only when they have severe itching or oozing. The first picture you can see the lice as such, but it is very difficult to see lice because it roams about very fast. But the second picture you are seeing nits, commonly called eel. So it's attached to the hair shafts. They are static, so we can identify them very fast. So now effective treatments are there for pediculosis also. That is, you have to apply lotions just around 15 to 20 minutes before bath. Should apply all over the scalp and hair. And you can wash it off and then comb your hair. But it is not effective against these nits. So you have to repeat after 10 days. So that once these nits hatch out, it will act against the lice also. So repeated application, just twice application following 10 days. And treat all the family members, especially female members who have lice infestation. Otherwise, you will get infection from them again. Next condition is pyoderma. It's a bacterial infection. You get pus-filled, painful lesions. I'll show you the picture. Painful pus-filled lesions, more common in children than adolescents, but adolescent people also usually come with this infection. Just cleansing the lesion is sufficient for these small infections, followed by application of antibiotic creams. So usually they are caused by streptococci or staphylococci. The problem with this bacteria is if the lesions are extensive, if it involves a major part of our body, it can also affect your internal organs like heart or kidney and cause complications. So early treatment is a must in bacterial infections. Next common condition is psoriasis. Most of you will be familiar with this condition. You get red, itchy, scaly lesions. I'll show you the picture. This is actually extensive psoriasis. You can even get psoriasis in localized areas. It is not infective. It won't spread to others because the basic problem in such people is their skin cells multiply very fast. That is maybe up to 10 times faster than normal skin. The common areas where you get psoriasis are scalp, elbows, knees, lower back. And just know that it is not contagious. It is a very benign disease. You can treat it, but the problem is it can recur again after treatment. That's why everybody says skin lesions are always chronic. Then eczema is another common condition. Here again you get red itchy lesions. Sometimes it may be dry, sometimes you get oozy lesions. It's a picture of eczema. Common type of eczema examples are contact eczemas, that is allergy following application of hair color, allergy following application of cosmetics, then glove allergy, watch strap allergy, nickel dermatitis. Then you can get allergy to footwear. So all these are eczemas. Then even sunlight can cause eczema, that is called photodermatitis, where you can get eczema in the exposed areas, especially your forearm, ear, etc. Then another common type of eczema which can occur in allergic individuals is called atopic eczema. That is in individuals having asthma, allergic cold, allergic rhinitis, etc. Their skin will be dry usually. In such individuals also recurrent eczemas can occur. So in dry skin always we advise moisturizing creams. Moisturizing cream should be applied twice or thrice daily. Once application will not help. But moisturizing creams as a must should be applied immediately after your bath. Because when you take bath, your skin is totally hydrated. And when the skin is hydrated, if you apply moisturizing creams, absorption will be maximum. So any drug, if applied immediately after your bath, maximum absorption occurs. Third point is avoid allergens. It's not very easy. The previous set exams like hair color, cosmetics, gloves and all you can avoid. But people with dust allergy, they cannot avoid dust. Then occupational allergies like cement allergy, people working with wood can develop allergy. So changing occupation and all are difficult. So it's not very practical. Then hirsutism means male pattern of hair growth in females. That is hair growth in unwanted areas like beard area, mustache area, you get hair growth. It can be just familial, that is it runs in certain families, and it can be associated with medical causes also. Common condition which is associated with hirsutism is PCOD. PCOD means polycystic ovarian disease. So in such individuals, along with increased hair growth, they'll have acne, pimples, as well as menstrual irregularities. Such individuals we should investigate, that is to rule out other causes. Then certain medicines which contain steroids or hormones can themselves cause hirsutism. So here again, we can treat with hair removing lasers. Repeated sessions may be needed, but it will destroy the hair follicles and it is actually a permanent cure. Hair growth in the beard area, mustache area, etc. But now effective treatments are there. Don't have to worry. Next condition is vitiligo, pand. You get milky white patches. It is again not infective. It is due to lack of a pigment which can pigment in the skin, which is called melanin. See, you can see depigmented or areas with loss of pigment. There's a lot of social stigma associated with disease because people think it is infective, and even in their household they are isolated from others. Actually, it is not an infective condition. It will not affect any of your internal organs. It is very benign. And if it is localized, you have effective treatments. But generalized vitiligo, usually treatment is not very effective. So people should need to walk around with this. Many eminent personalities have this problem. Then lastly, about vaginal discharge. This vaginal discharge is usually a normal physiological phenomenon. You don't have to worry at all about vaginal discharge. Normal vaginal discharge is clear no. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So vaginal discharge is usually clear and watery. It may be you may get increased vaginal discharge during some periods of time. For example, just before your menstruation, premenstrually, then ovulation, that is which occurs in your mid-cycle, 2 weeks before your menstruation. Then at times of stress also you can get increased vaginal discharge. So this is actually normal. You don't have to worry. Then when is this abnormal, or when should you seek treatment? One situation is when you have curdy white precipitate associated with itching. That is just occurs in candidiasis. That is a fungal infection. And another situation is when you have yellowish or greenish frothy profuse discharge. That is, you get much more increased discharge than normal, and you have a color and odor also. A foul smell will be there associated with lower abdominal pain. In such situations, you can seek treatment. Otherwise, vaginal discharge is normal. And that was my last slide. And I would like to conclude with some certain points, that is take home messages. Most of the skin diseases are treatable if you consult anyone, a qualified person, in very early stage of the disease itself. Okay, second very important point is avoid self-medications. That will create lots of complications. And third thing is awareness about non-infective conditions like vitiligo, psoriasis, because these conditions are associated with lots of social stigma. If you are aware about that conditions, such stigmas you can remove from society. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priya ma'am, for that informative session. I'm sure all the participants have got a handful of insights on the various conditions of the skin and the way to deal with those. If you have any queries, yes, somebody has asked, does dandruff spread on body parts?
Yes, dandruff can occur in body parts. That is, scaling can occur in areas such as eyebrows, eyelashes, and even your body parts like chest and upper back also. You can get scaling associated with itching.
Any other queries, girls? Looks like none of them have any queries. Now I invite Ms. Sona G. Krishnan, Assistant Professor, Department of Physics, to propose the vote of thanks.
ബഹുമാനപ്പെട്ട പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ ഡോക്ടർ നിഷേജ നായർ, മുഖ്യാതിഥി ഡോക്ടർ പ്രിയ അശോക്, കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി ഹെൽത്ത് ക്ലബ് കോർഡിനേറ്റർ ശ്രീമതി സീമ ഗോപിനാഥൻ, എൻ്റെ സഹപ്രവർത്തകരെ, പ്രിയ കുട്ടികളെ, കൗമാരം അതിമനോഹരമായ കാലഘട്ടമാണ്. പൂത്തുലഞ്ഞു നിൽക്കുന്ന ചുറുചുറുക്കുള്ള യുവത്വം നമ്മുടെ കലാലയത്തിന്റെ ഏറ്റവും സുന്ദര കാഴ്ചയാണ്. എന്നാൽ ഈ കുട്ടികളുടെ ആത്മവിശ്വാസത്തെ തല്ലിക്കെടുത്തുന്ന ഒരു പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട വില്ലനാണ് സ്കിൻ ഡിസീസസ്. നമ്മുടെ കുഞ്ഞുങ്ങളുടെ സംശയങ്ങൾ ദൂരീകരിക്കാൻ മനസ്സ് കാണിച്ച, അവർക്ക് ആത്മവിശ്വാസം നൽകിയ ഡോക്ടർ പ്രിയ അശോകിന് കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി ഹെൽത്ത് ക്ലബിന്റെ പേരിൽ നന്ദി അറിയിക്കുന്നു. ക്ലബിന്റെ പ്രവർത്തനങ്ങൾക്ക് ഊർജവും ഉപദേശവും നൽകി മുന്നോട്ട് നയിക്കുന്ന പ്രിൻസിപ്പൽ നിഷ ടീച്ചർക്കും നന്ദിയും സ്നേഹവും അറിയിക്കുന്നു. നമ്മുടെ കുട്ടികൾ ഏറെ ആകുലപ്പെടുന്ന ഈ വിഷയം തിരഞ്ഞെടുത്ത് വെബിനാർ വിജയമാക്കാൻ അക്ഷീണം പ്രയത്നിച്ച സീമ ഗോപിനാഥൻ ടീച്ചറിനെ ഒരുപാട് നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തുന്നു. ഈ വെബിനാറിന്റെ ഭാഗമായ ക്ലബ് അംഗങ്ങളെയും കമ്മ്യൂണിറ്റി ഹെൽത്ത് ക്ലബിന്റെ ഭാഗമായ കുട്ടികളെയും ഇതിൽ പങ്കെടുത്ത ഓരോരുത്തർക്കും നന്ദി രേഖപ്പെടുത്തിക്കൊണ്ട് നിർത്തുന്നു. നന്ദി, നമസ്കാരം.
There are some more questions coming up actually. One is, are skin diseases hereditary?
No, most of them are not. There are some hereditary diseases. Among the infections I discussed now, most are infective, that is bacterial, viral in origin. Those are not hereditary. Certain conditions like psoriasis may be hereditary, may or may not be hereditary. Then eczemas, a major part like atopic dermatitis, are hereditary. The one associated with allergies, that is hereditary.
Okay, ma'am. Another question is, how to treat vaginal discharge?
Vaginal discharge, depending on the cause, you can treat. If it is a fungal infection, we give antifungal creams as well as tablets are there. It's found to be very effective. Then another major cause of vaginal discharge is trichomoniasis, which we can treat with metronidazole tablets. All these are very safe drugs. These are the two usual causes for vaginal discharge.
Okay, ma'am. Another interesting question coming up is, can anti-dandruff shampoo be used for all skin types?
Dandruff is usually seen in oily skin, but there are dry types of scaling also. So anti-dandruff shampoos usually can be used in every skin type, but certain individuals may need oil in addition to this anti-dandruff shampoos. That's all. Anti-dandruff shampoos can be used in all. Whether oil application is needed or not, we have to judge.
The last question is, ma'am, they have requested to repeat once more about how to get rid of nits from hair.
Okay. We have shampoos containing permethrin. The trade name is actually Perlice, which contains permethrin 1%. You have to apply this around 10 to 20 minutes before bath. You can apply all over your hair and scalp, and then you can wash it off with water and then comb your hair. Then this has to be repeated after 10 days because it does not act on nits. But once the nits are, they hatch out the lice, then it's easy to remove the nits also. As such, you cannot treat the nits, but you can repeat the application and then you can remove the nits because they are dead ones. It's easy to remove after that.
Okay, that's all with the questions, ma'am. Thank you once again for that extra effort you took, for that extra time you spent for us. Thank you once again. Thank you.